Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session, The Data Game, Using Artificial Intelligence-Enabled Technology to Thrive. Today, I'm going to talk about two important drivers of digital transformation that are going to play a big role in defining the future of how we work, how we engage with customers, beat competition, and drive revenue. I'm Saranya Babu. I'm the head of marketing here at Wrike. And I started as a software engineer, interestingly, and moved on to marketing and have worked many years in marketing, especially in the area of focused on enterprise SaaS software. Now, interestingly, my undergraduate thesis was actually in artificial intelligence back when it was a fancy concept with not much real life applicability. Now, here we are 20 years later, living in a world where AI has pervaded everything we do. So for those of you who are not familiar with Wrike, here is a brief introduction to Wrike. Wrike is a leader in collaborative work management. And what that means is Wrike is a cloud-based software that allows you to manage any type of work, be it organizing your own tasks, managing your team, planning and strategizing projects, programs, processes, or enterprise-wide initiatives. Wrike is used by all types of teams to manage any use case and used by 20,000 customers across 135 countries. So let's start with a brief context on the market shift that is happening as we speak. So today I'm going to focus on two changes that have culminated in this shift that we're seeing today. One of them is a very short-term thing that happened with the abrupt and sudden shift to remote working that was driven by the pandemic. And we are all very familiar with how that played out and is still playing out, and how that's going to take shape in the future. We have some sense of that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but that's the first force. The second thing that happened happened more gradually over the last decade. And that is the advancement in technologies across many different dimensions, across mobile, cloud technologies, security, data, and whatnot. Now, this has really led to a lot of efficiencies and a lot of advancements in every sphere of life, but it also has brought with it exponential complexity. Now, for example, just with the advancements in the last decade or so, we saw a proliferation and explosion of technology that is available today for anything really that you want to do. On an average, an employee uses more than 200 apps in their day-to-day, which is a lot. This has also led to gradually an acceleration of the pace at which we move. So it all started with, how quickly, how quickly someone can start a company and introduce new technology into the market. So that kind of was the start of that. And then as that started happening and technology started advancing, companies started to face more competitive pressure. And as they started facing that, we really had to start responding quicker and be nimble. And so that forced companies to move faster and faster. And so really led to a lot of that pressure coming from all sides. So on an average, if you look at just the pace at which companies have to move to stay competitive and just stay relevant in today's market, it's overwhelming. So here are some numbers to quantify that pace at which we're moving. 304, more than 300 average weekly emails received per employee. We attend 62 meetings per month. So that's all a lot of work that has been created just because of the pace at which we have to move and because of all the advancements. And that has led to a significant degradation of productivity. An average worker is productive for less than 60% of the time. And that's a lot of wastage that has been caused simply because of the exponential complexity. So all of this demand a more versatile and intelligent way of working. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And within the lens of two big pillars that I talked about, which is artificial intelligence and collaborative work management, and how these two are going to play together to really help us thrive in this type of environment that has been caused by this market shift. So I'm going to get into a little bit more detail. So businesses are feeling the squeeze, as I talked about. We have to move faster and faster, do more things with less. And if I look at kind of the big pillars, right, the big areas where this pressure is coming from, the first is really the speed of change is increasing, which I talked about. There is a market speed that's happening, but also if you look at marketing, for example, especially digital marketing moves in seconds, right? Not even weeks or months, right? Not even days. For example, a digital marketing auction takes 200 milliseconds, and there are billions of auctions that happen every hour. And so marketing teams really need to be plugged in real time and move at that pace to stay relevant. So across all dimensions, in terms of how fast products are being launched into the market, how fast competitors are moving, and how fast you really have to move with your campaigns, the speed of change is really, really increasing. Now, one specific area in that is the competition is fierce, right? And this is, again, another result of what I talked about, which is the speed at which you're able to introduce new technology into the market. And so that has led to a fierce competition, right? I'll give you the example of the marketing, just the marketing space. There is this infographic that is being published with all of the logos of companies that are in the marketing space. And back in 2011, when it was started, there were 150 companies, which you would think is a lot of companies, right, in a particular space. And it grew exponentially, and now it's more than 9,000 companies in that space, right? So that's a lot of competition, and that one has to really, the market has become a battlefield for everybody. And then because of all of this competition and availability of technology, customer expectations naturally have increased. And so that's also putting more pressure to constantly have to stay on top of everything, on top of the game, and to cut through the noise. And then, if you take all of these external pressures and look at how you're able to, the ability of your teams to kind of handle these, it's being further complicated by some of the internal complications. So for example, remote work, right? Which not every company was doing remote work. Actually, most companies were working from the office. Many companies had remote workers, on a need-only basis. They had distributed teams, of course, but teams did not work in a remote work setup, right? And so that's definitely introducing complications, operational complexities, and then the explosion of technology of how you make sure that everything is synchronized across all of these different technologies. So that introduces a lot of silos and challenges in just making sure that you're able to unify and streamline everything. Now, one area I want to talk about within this kind of complexity is really hybrid work, which is the future, where you will see all flavors of work being work setups happening. This is where it's really pushing the boundaries. So if you take the biggest bottleneck of any kind of business, it is this whole concepting and kind of working on the project and then stakeholder approval. That whole process is the biggest bottleneck, and just that process alone, I imagine the complexities that will be introduced because of this hybrid work. People that are that previously were able to get into a room and just simply go do intense brainstorming now have to take that process online. Maybe some people are online, some people are in a room. How do you make sure it's still effective? And then the execution of the project, execution itself, where there are no more hallway conversations, no more desk side visits, no more kind of quick conversations. How do you then make sure that it's all moving at that pace? And then stakeholder approval. How do you make sure that all stakeholder input and feedback is taken and reconciled and really taking this forward? So all of these processes that used to happen seamlessly because everybody was co-located now will have to become are becoming more complex, and we have to figure out ways to do them in this new setup. So moving on, let's talk about artificial intelligence and how to fuel growth in 2021 and beyond. And I'm going to also explain why really artificial intelligence is the only way we will be able to thrive in this type of environment where the complexity is exploding, the pressure is exploding, and the need to the competition is exploding. And so whatever you do, if you keep your performance at the same level you're actually going to be losing and becoming irrelevant, right? So you have to constantly keep stepping up your game. And so let's look at how we can do that effectively in this new backdrop. All right. So I'm going to start with just artificial intelligence. If you, most of you are already experiencing using the benefits or technologies of artificial intelligence already in your life. And if this is something that seems like an alien concept to you, let me tell you that this is not an alien concept at this point. It is everywhere in our life. AI has pervaded the personal space at least, and consumers, because of this, expect the same intelligence in their work environments, and especially the millennials and the Gen Z workers who grew up with these technologies versus some of the other late millennials and Gen Xers who picked it up as a new skill midway in their life. So if you look at, on the left-hand side, what we see is this is Amazon, Alexa, and then some of you may be familiar with Google Personal Assistant and Siri, right? So all of these personal assistant technologies, conversational assistants, have really gotten us used to having, giving quick voice commands to get some things done. And then on the right-hand side, you see Netflix. So technologies like Netflix recommendation have gotten us to expect intelligent recommendations based on a past usage. And in the middle, what you see is Tesla Autopilot. This has really shown us, demonstrated that some things we never thought could be automated can really be automated. And so artificial intelligence has gotten all of us used to being able to do quick things, give voice commands and do quick things, or expect some learning by the systems based on a past behavior, so we don't have to constantly keep tuning and doing the work, right? We expect our environment to learn based on our just usage and personalize that experience for us. So moving on. Now, one area, I love this slide, by the way. So one area that really remains outdated is the way we work. So if you look at the dominant technologies that we use at work, they're all either 30 or 40 years old, right? Email, spreadsheets, messaging, they're all at least 20 to 40 years old. And so what has happened, right? So we're all trying to survive. We use cutting edge technology and our customers expect cutting edge technology, but the way we work has remained stagnated. And that is not going to help us thrive in this type of setup. And so I'm going to talk about AI, and also just in the realm of how you get work to really thrive in this environment. So moving on, say hello to the future, which is work intelligence. Work intelligence is really using artificial intelligence, tapping into the power of artificial intelligence in the way you get your work done, right? In the way you create a strategy, you plan, you collaborate, you manage and you track your work. So that's what we call work intelligence. So we're gonna take a little peek into that and see how that's gonna define the future of work. So, so let's also talk about attaching AI to growth, right? So growth is something that requires a lot of support from different, from the technology side, the people side, the process side. So really, how can AI be another pillar for us to help grow? All right, so let me start with just AI, right? AI is can be very, very powerful, but in certain circumstances, right? In the last decade or so, the advancements in technology has really enabled us to generate lots and lots of data, right? So previously, we didn't have that much data, right? We things, we had our workflows and we had our processes, but none of that was tracked and recorded, right? So today we are able to track everything, and we're able to save all of that information in databases with storage technology, and all of that has advanced vastly. So it really helps us save tons and tons of data, right? Uh, and so when you have this ability to generate so much data, that's when really AI can be powerful, and it can shine. Because what AI does is that it mimics the human brain's abilities, but at million times the scale, right? And specifically the predictive, cognitive, and deductive abilities, right? Those you're able to, versus some of the other kind of softer skills. So what AI can do is it's able to, for a human being, we can take a look at maybe dozens of data points, and we're able to kind of look at that and come up with some conclusions. But if we're given billions of data points, that's going to be extremely hard for us to do, because we don't have the capacity to do that. That's what AI does. It's able to take our ability to process data and deduct patterns and make predictions, and it's able to do it for billions of data, right, at a much, much larger scale of data. And so that is really powerful, because we will be able to uncover things that we ourselves could have never been able to do. And that's where AI really shines. And it's very, very timely, simply because technology has now enabled us to capture and store this type of data. And so now it's AI is the next step, where you just take the data and you're able to glean all of the knowledge that you can glean from this data. So it's extremely powerful in this day and age. Specifically, it's very, very timely. So AI, that said, a piece of warning here is that AI is only as good as the data, right? If the data is bad, then the conclusions will be bad. So it's really important that you pay attention. As AI is great, but you also have to pay attention to the data. That's the first step. And what is really important here is to have a system of record for everything. For example, let's take the concept of work, right? In the prior to remote work, and when we had the more traditional kind of setup, the way we worked was very, very siloed and disparate, right? Kind of spread across many different technologies and setups. So for example, a few people would get into a room and have a conversation, which may or may not be recorded in the entirety. There may be some notes taken by someone, and it may or may not be available to everybody. So that's there. And then people had their own kind of files, and what they worked off spreadsheets or whatever technology they used, and that was shared to a few people. But again, it was there, stored in their own kind of setups. It was very siloed. And then people would have desk side visits, hallway conversations. And then they would have meetings. So all of this meant that work was getting done, but none of that, there was no system of record, right, for work. There was a system of record for maybe some files. Maybe there was a system record for some type of assets. Maybe some notes were taken at some point, but there was no system of record for what was the strategy, what was the plan that came from the strategy, how well did the plan execute, who are all the people involved, what was their contribution, what was the result of each of those kind of projects. Did the projects actually map back to the strategy? How effectively did they map back to the strategy? And then as you do more and more of this, what has been the pattern? So none of that was there was no ability to kind of in a systematic and scientific way track any of that, right? Because there was no system of record. So collaborative work management really helps here, because it offers a system of record for work. So everything end to end, from ideation to strategy, to the plan, to the execution of the plan, to managing the resources, managing the projects, and managing the timelines, and then how as they get done, kind of the trajectory of that project, of that work, and then the results of that work. Did it lead to what business kind of results, outcomes came out of that project, and then did that match, and did that really pan out? And then at a historical kind of trend level, how is this doing, right? So that you're able to, so that you can get visibility across your people, right? The effectiveness of the people, the effectiveness of the campaigns, effectiveness of your assets that you produce, just across all your dimensions. Are you, you're able to get the visibility in terms of whether you're making the right investments or not. So to do that, you need a system of record. Now, in many areas, technology is already there. For example, the sales side, Salesforce is your system of record for your entire kind of customer lifecycle. Marketo is a system of record for your kind of pre-sales customer prospect lifecycle, right? And so that data is all there, but for work itself, we currently don't have a system of record. But anyway, so it's really important to have a system of record for AI to be effective. So now I'm going to move on to kind of talking about the potential of AI in a work setting, right? Like we have, this can be useful in all spheres of life, and many of us are probably using many of these. And I'm only going to touch a few of, I only have a few here. This is definitely by no means an exhaustive list of all the technologies that are out there. So I want to like kind of start a chat bots, something that we're all familiar with. You go to a website, you get instant engagement. So chatbots really enable you to expand your ability to engage with customers, but also to automate some of the more transactional type of engagements out to the chatbots so that you can deploy your people to more higher touch, high value engagements. So that really helps you optimize that. Risk assessment, this is really important. Within Wrike, we do have used AI for this. So we're able to look at all of the activities. So we have more than 2.6 million users that manage hundreds of millions of tasks. And our system is able to kind of process all of that data. And then it's able to like glean patterns and be able to predict whether a project is at risk or not much earlier, so that you're able to mitigate the risk, right? So if, let's say, down the line, you will face a resource shortage in a certain particular skill set. If, for example, you have a big branding project, and based on everything that's coming in, if the system detects that your graphic designer resources, you're going to be short on that, that's going to be a bottleneck, those type of things. Or just based on a pattern from past patterns, a certain team or a person is going to be delayed, right? So those type of things you're able to kind of assess. Reinforcement learning, that's another kind of new thing that has come up. Predictive analytics, that's something we actually use within Wrike. So we have, again, as I mentioned, AI needs a lot of data. So we get lots of thousands of trials per month. And so with that volume of data, we're able to use machine learning to really predict within minutes what that expected revenue would be, so that we are able to put our best sales resources on the best leads, right? So that's that. Resource and budget management, that's another thing that's really important that we offer as a core. How do you make sure that you allocate the right resources to the right projects, and then the budget, same thing as well. Make sure that you optimize those investments. Dynamic pricing, if you're in a consumer business, that this is really important. It is able to kind of glean from past patterns on what time of the day, what type of SKUs, and based on all of that, really kind of dynamically price, look at the competitive kind of pressures, and take all of that and create the best pricing. Conversation assistants, so beyond just chatbots, across all types of medium, conversation assistants really improve the quality of your engagement with the customers. And the forecasting is something that is used in many different fields, like sales is one, marketing is another. So AI is already ingrained into a lot of aspects of work, and it's only going to increase. But my call to action here is that anywhere you have data, right, lots of data, you have to tap into. It would be money left on the table if you're not using AI to really kind of glean patterns and use those early predictions and automation and recommendations to optimize your work. All right, so now I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes talking about intelligent collaborative work management. So we launched this solution called Work Intelligence last year, and we were the first in the industry to do this. And this is really to, make sure that we bring in some of those best practices from the consumer world into our work world, because at the end of the day, we're all people. I'm putting this in three categories. The first one is early predictions that I mentioned, really looking at the habits of people, the way teams engage with each other, the way projects have in the past shaped out. For example, a certain industry may be extremely competitive, which means things get introduced in the last minute all the time, right? In which case, based on the historic pattern, you will be able to predict that, you will be able to predict that you need this type of, something can come in at the last minute and something may get delayed. So all of those things at scale, you're able to avoid potential delays. You can mitigate those risks much early on. If you've got the signal much early on that there is a possibility of delay, you can mitigate the risk and you can cut the losses. The second big category is recommendations. And this is extremely important, especially in today's world where we're all living in a world of distractions, right? Any app you go into, we use more than 200 apps, as I mentioned at the beginning. And any single app you go into, it pulls you into right, and then you're kind of lost there. So let's say you're working in email, there's like a lot of emails waiting for you to like kind of take action and respond. Then if you want to like kind of check something and you go to like a messaging app like Microsoft Teams or Slack, then there's a whole stream of conversations waiting for you there, right? So this is, and then you get notifications and whatnot. So in this world of distractions, what recommendations allow you to do is to like really learn your habits and your behavior and surface up the most relevant and the most important things for you to do next, right? So that's recommendations. This really helps you improve response times and focus on the work that matters. And then supporting hybrid work, that's really important as we go forward. So we introduced voice commands. So you can quickly just say, hey, create a task for John for next week, right? And about this, and it'll automatically create and assign to John, right? So voice commands are awesome, or complete this task, right? So those type of things. Automated responses. So it's very similar to what you see in some of the email apps. So it would surface up 2 or 3 quick responses, right? Yes, maybe, not, no, right? So very quick kind of responses that you can just simply just click and it'll go away. You can work in a hands-free mode. You don't have to type in the entire response. And then digitization is really important. This is where you're able to just convert your printed documents into digital, and then you're able to like edit and really bring them into the digital world. So all of these kind of with the mobile experience really help you in this hybrid workplace where you're not in an office where you have a printer or a scanner or any of those technologies. All right, so then finally, I want to kind of close it out with talking about having a collaborative work management and what the benefits are. So specifically with Wrike, our differentiation and our really key value is that Wrike is the most versatile platform for any type of work. And the reason why we really focus on this is because work itself is versatile, right? No work is the same, and people are different. And so even the same work, like people do it differently. And so everybody has their own secret sauce, own way of working, and you would only succeed if you're able to work the way you can, right? You want to let the fish swim, and you want to let the tiger run, right? You can't force a tiger to swim, you can't force a fish to run. So it's really important. And so what we do is we allow you to work your way with our deep customizability. And then collaborating within context, this is where we bring everything related to your work into the task, so that you don't have to go into like 5 different tools to get that context. It's all there. So just dealing with the distraction. 360-degree visibility is we bring in everything you need across all tools into this space. And then work intelligence is a final piece. So, and again, it's an enterprise-ready platform with higher security, scalability, and then analytics and integrations. So with that, we come to the end of this session. I want to kind of leave you with this. It's really kind of going forward in this next decade. It's really important to work your way, as we have all people that are coming from kind of digitally forward consumers, kind of coming into the workspace. There's going to be a lot of expectation of personalization of the environment to them, right? And so working your way is extremely important, and that really helps you work as one. So with that, we come to the end of this session. Thank you so much.